Welcome friends. Today in the second part of this compliance series, I will talk about compliance risk and the strategy to monitor the compliance risk. I am Manish Kumar and I welcome you to this series of compliance. In the first part of this series, I discuss about what is compliance, what are the various compliance functions that bankers are required to follow and abide by, and different regulatory bodies that exist in India. At the outset, we must have a clear idea as to various risks that the banking as an industry faces and why compliance has emerged as a significant risk that has to be mitigated. The purpose of any business enterprise is to earn profits. The various risks undertaken to achieve the purpose is credit risk, liquidity risk, market risk, operational risk, etc. All the risks have a monetary impact and come with a cost. Profit and loss is a very common term that we use while referring a financial transaction. Profit is easy to understand as money flows in. But what about loss? Loss is that situation when the earlier discussed risks such as credit risk, liquidity risk, market risk, operational risk does not remain a mere perception but materializes into a stark reality. Now that we have gained some insight as to what exactly is a risk, let's head into our main topic of discussion, that is compliance risk. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision (BCSB) defines compliance risk: the risk of legal or regulatory sanctions, material financial loss, or loss to reputation a bank may suffer as a result of its failure to comply with law, regulation, rules, related self-regulatory organization standards, and code of conduct applicable to its banking activity. Analyzing this definition, three basic compliance risks stand out, which are as follows. Number one, risk of legal or regulatory sanctions. Regulatory authorities in India have been vested with wide-ranging powers to impose fines and penalties for contravention of a non-compliance with its directions. Different types of contraventions or non-compliance include the following. Number two, the risk of material financial loss. This compliance risk call for imposition of fines or penalties in exercise of power vested in RBI under the provisions of the Banking Regulation Act 1949 for deficiency in regulatory compliance. Penalty is imposed for several reasons. I will discuss in detail about the reasons and the possible preventive steps from penalties in my next video. Number three, reputational risk. Compliance failure has an adverse effect on the reputation and a goodwill of a bank. It damages not only its reputation but also its market standing. Fallout of reputational risk are as follows. Number four, self-regulatory organization standards and code of conduct. This component of compliance risk refers to the non-compliance of internal circulars and guidelines of a bank and the code of conduct that is binding on all employees. The next logical question would be how to mitigate or eliminate compliance risk. The onus is on the compliance team to draw up a suitable strategy to mitigate the compliance risk. For monitoring of compliance risk, a proper strategy is to be adopted wherein bank will determine the amount of risk it can absorb on account of non-compliance and adopt suitable measures to counter such risks. Compliance risk appetite. Set threshold limit based on the risk occurrence. Identify areas of non-compliance and absorption level. Identify areas of high risk and severity and ensure regulatory alerts. Identify areas of breaches in internal control over compliance. Observations and site visits, investigations and review of existing system. It is essential to conduct a root cause analysis and focus on vulnerable areas where gaps exist between regulatory guidelines, policy and actual practices. However, no control or monitoring measures are complete without proper testing. Hence, a regular compliance testing is to be put in place for determining the effectiveness of control measures. Testing for identifying controlling compliance risk. A test plan will include the following checkpoints: the nature of compliance risk, the source of compliance risk, the cause of compliance risk, effect of compliance risk. Friends, as we come to the final leg of our discussion on compliance risk, we lay emphasis on compliance testing, an indispensable tool to assess the level of risk, certain areas of non-compliance or high risk where there is a probability of penalty fine being imposed, initiate remedial action, plug identified gaps and exercise continuous control. Bringing this session to an end, thank you and looking forward for your company in my next series. Bye.